Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks again for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, and youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Who were these people before they became famous? What was their original plan in life and their first job? You know the name Robert Horry, who not only played with the Houston Rockets, but also the Phoenix Suns, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know if you know this, but Robert Horry has 7 NBA championship rings. 7, that's more than Michael Jordan. And he won those 7 rings on 3 different teams, which I find pretty amazing. We'll find out where this all started. You know, the NBA wasn't Robert's original plan. We'll find out what the original plan was. Maybe a moment or two that changed his life. He's an NBA broadcaster, and he's also the host of his own podcast, the Big Shot Bob Pod, which just so happens to be on the same podcast network as Celebrity Jobber, the podcast playground. 7-time NBA champ Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob, is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Robert, I mean, first of all, 7 rings. I had no idea they had 7 rings. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable.
7 rings, 16 seasons, 7 rings. I was hoping for a little bit more, but
really,
yeah, it was a great journey, man. I was lucky, man. I played with some great players, man, and we had great chemistry. More importantly, because I played with great players before and had no chemistry. If you don't have no chemistry, man, you don't win, man. No matter how good the coach is, but as players, you got to like each other.
Is it all about just liking each other off the court?
I think it's liking people on the court. And sometimes it can cross over to off the court because you see how a lot of guys, we would do a lot of team dinners together. We would do a lot of things like that. But more importantly, man, this is what I thought was the best thing. After practices, we would literally sit in the locker room and talk to each other and just shoot the shit, man, to be honest with you. And so
you had to know the guy's moves, right? You had to be like, okay,
yeah,
Spreewell, I know he's going to do this. I don't even have to look at him, and I know where he's going to be. Was it stuff like that, just knowing the guys so much to what they were going to do before they did it?
Yeah, pretty much, man. That comes from a lot of practice. If you look at NBA now, a lot of people don't practice a lot. It's the weirdest thing because they're all about load management. The guys need to stay off their feet. But yet then the guys will go work out for an hour to 2 hours doing their own thing. It's that's the craziest thing ever. So for me, you look at how much practice time we used to spend together. We would practice, and the second team will go hard at the first team will go hard at the second team, making each other better, and then we get in the locker room, we laugh and talk about it, and if we lose, we say, we kicking your butt the next day.
Right.
There's so many things like that, competitive nature, and then we might, some of us might go to lunch together, but more importantly, when we went on the road, we try to do as many dinners together as possible on the road, because on the road, it's just you guys. At home, you got your families to deal with. You got your wives, you got your kids, you got your girlfriend, whatever it may be. So that's a lot of things that we did, man.
Rewind a little bit, if you will, Robert, growing up in Andalusia, Alabama. When did basketball become a major part of your life?
I think it hit me in the 8th grade. Because in 8th grade, that's when I started getting pretty good. My brother, who's older than me, he's 3 years older than me. When you're in small towns, you got your little crew, you got your little clique, and everybody in your crew is around your age. And since there was a 3-year separation, my clique and my brother's clique was different. And they wouldn't let us play with them. They always let us play against, because they enjoyed kicking our butts and making us cry and all this kind of stuff, right? And so by the time I was in the 8th grade, my brother's he's going into his senior year. I'm going into, his junior year. I'm going to my 8th grade year. We starting to kick their butts sometime. We didn't, out of 10 games, we might win 1. And so at that point, my brother was like, man, you're going to play with me now, so
right.
Instead of playing against him. And that's when it just started clicking. And by the time I got to 9th grade, I'm like, my one goal was like, man, we can win a 9th grade championship, because they had those back then in Alabama. But my high school coach was like, no, you playing varsity. I'm like, I don't want to play varsity. I want to win a championship.
Right.
And so I played varsity as a freshman, and I was just like, each game I got better and better and better. And by the time I was a sophomore, I'm averaging 23 points a game as a sophomore in high school, going from averaging like 9 points, because I learned so much. And that's why I tell kids now, they all want to play all these AAU games. I said, you get more out of just getting your boys and going to a local gym and playing all day. Because you go to AAU game, you might play 1 game a day, and you got 12 other guys that got to play. You might not get that much run.
Right.
You think about it, you took all that traveling to get to where you're going, and you get a total of maybe like 20 minutes of play while you're there. But you can take that travel money, go up, rent out a gym, and play for like 6 hours of total game time in one day compared to 20 minutes.
Right.
And parents don't look at it like that. And I think that was the best thing for me. Yeah, I even noticed that with my younger son. The more playing time he got, the better he got.
Right. I could see, I totally understand. Parents today, though, they think that their kid is getting an advantage if they're on the AAU team or on the travel team. There's this thing out there that people think that high school's not enough, that, the scouts or whoever, they're not coming to a high school game to look at your son. They're going to an AAU game to look at 10 kids. And that's, I guess, that's the misnomer with sports today compared to when we were younger growing up. So you're just developing on your own. You're getting good on your own. So you said your brother, a few years older than you. I know your dad was a military.
Correct.
Your dad was a military man. Was he a
Yes.
was he a baller? Did he have anything to do with basketball and you?
No, it was my brother, because at the time my mom and my dad was separated. My dad was living in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm in Andalusia, Alabama. And it was just in the streets with my friends. I was, when they say it takes a village, my street was, nowadays it's called a cul-de-sac. We lived on a dead end.
Yeah, a dead end.
Where the street just stopped. And everybody, it was literally 12 kids in that neighborhood all around the same age. It was it was like below my house was 2 more houses. It was 3 kids there. Across the street from me was 2 kids there. And we all just would get in the street. We played baseball, we played basketball, we played football. We just played, and whatever season it was is what we did. And it was like, and we were all competitive. And we all knew who was going to be good at what ABC. My best friends, he was going to be good at football. He was one of the fastest dudes you would ever see. And then I was going to be good at basketball. And I had another friend who was a really good baseball player. And we were all like, determined, okay, we playing football today, we determined to kick your butt because you're the best football player. You're the best basketball player, we determined to kick your butt. And that made the competitive nature came out, and we just laughed about it and had so much fun competing, man. It's just, you want to beat someone's butt so you can have the bragging rights.
Right.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
You got drafted. What, were you a junior were you a sophomore or junior when you went into the NBA? You didn't get your degree, but
I was a senior.
You were a senior, but you didn't get your degree, though.
I was a senior.
You got your degree just a few years ago. You went back and you got your degree. I think that's so admirable.
Correct.
Was that like something that stuck out in the back of your mind? Was mom like in the back of your mind saying like, hey, man, didn't get your degree. I know you're successful. Big shot, Bob. But what made you go back all those years later to get your degree?
The job wasn't finished. And my whole thing is when I left, when I went to college, I noticed my first 2 years, I was taking a lot of classes. And I was like, man, this is stressing me out, man. So I put myself on a 5-year plan. I said, I ain't got to pay for it, so why should I be in a hurry to graduate, right? So I put myself on a 5-year plan, and by the time I was a senior, I if I would have had another 5th year, which I thought I was, but I got drafted in the NBA, so I left college. But I said that because I had like maybe 5 classes to take before I graduated, even when I was in college.
Right.
But when I went back to NBA, the first year, it was weird because the summer school, you had to offer professional courses, and they offer them every other year. So the first year I had, when I went back, they didn't offer them that year. Then my second year, we won a championship. I wasn't trying to go back to school. I was partying, to be honest with you. And then the third year, we went out the league. I won it. And then the fourth year, when I was going to go back, I got traded. So that was, preoccupying my mind. So after 4 years removed from college, I was like, man, forget this. And then COVID came about, and I was like, I already had been talking to all the professors and the guidance counselor and everybody I need to talk to about finishing my degree. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And COVID hit, and it was just the perfect time.
Right.
I was like, oh, crap.
It was. It
I'll
was
be sitting at home doing that anyway, right?
Absolutely.
So it was perfect. Yeah.
Either on the golf course or get your degree, right?
Exactly. And I don't play golf, so it worked out perfectly.
What about if basketball didn't work out? I mean, was there anything in the back of your mind when you were playing for Alabama back then? What was like the direction you thought you might go into in this world if not for professional basketball?
It's funny you said my backup plan was the NBA. My plan A was to be a teacher.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, because coming out of, high school and college, everybody in my mom's side of the family are teachers, are educators. So my whole thing was, okay, I want to be a teacher, and then I want to be a coach. And so that was my whole thing, coach, teach. And then next thing I know, I'm like, my sophomore year in college, I got ranked as one of the top 10 small forwards in the country. And my whole perception changed. I went from I talked about, remember I was killing myself with all the classes. I went from taking 6 courses a semester to taking 3. And my coach said, if you flunk one, you're going to be ineligible. I'm like, dude, you think I'm going to flunk?
Right.
Heck no.
Right.
And so I started focusing more on basketball and everything. And then it just worked out that way.
That's incredible. I wasn't expecting that because usually the kids, everybody's got a dream. They want to be in the NBA. Obviously, you had to dream too, but you seemed mature enough at that age to be realistic. You like coaching. I know that you've coached your son's AAU team, right? Yeah,
I did that just because the parents talked me into it. I'm like, I don't want to coach. but it's because I was doing stuff with them on the side anyway, just trying to educate them and get them, to think basketball, not just play it. And then next thing you know, the parents, I started out with my son and 2 of his friends. And then one day I look up, I got the whole team in here. And they're like, you should just coach the team. I'm like, I don't want to coach the team. I said, because this is, I get paid to do this stuff, or I do it for free. And I don't think you guys going to pay me what I want. They're like, we'll just pay for everything. So I probably had the first AAU team that was free.
Oh,
every kid did everything free because everything was sponsored. I'm like, every kids weren't paying no money, and it was just fun for me. They had a great time, which was the most important thing to me.
You look at this whole career of yours, Robert, we're talking about 7 NBA championships, which still blows my mind. Do you think there was a big break or the moment that you really consider, everything happened for you? Was there a moment like that in your career?
It was multiple moments, even in high school where you miss a free throw, you lose a game, and you walk in the locker room, all your teammates are crying because you just, got kicked out of your own Christmas tournament, and then you go to college and you think you're the best player on the team, and you're mad because you're not getting enough shots, and you get into it with the coach and you get kicked off the team. And it's just so many things that, put you in perspective. Is it about you or is it about we? And I think that the moment where I realized it's about we was those 2 collective moments, because I think about my skill set and what I could have did in NBA. If you look at my first couple of years, I had plays run for me. I'm averaging double figures, and all of a sudden you go to the Lakers and you say, oh, you're a good spot up shooter. That's what we're gonna regulate you to. You're gonna only do spot up shoot, and you say, okay, you don't want that. But can you complain about it because you're winning? And you say, okay, but we're winning. And so you don't want to, stir the pot. And it's like from those moments together, you're like, okay, well, is it about you or is it about winning? What's more important to you? And I said, okay, if we win, you automatically gonna get paid. But I'm also saying in the back of my mind, but if you put up numbers, you're gonna get paid. So I just was like to say, okay, let's just do the ultimate sacrifice and do what's important for the team and not what's important for me. And it's just you just sacrifice so much of your skill set to be the best for your team. And I think for me, that was the one thing that I hung my hat on, that I sacrificed so much of my game in order for a team to win. But the bad part about that is after a couple of years, that's who you become. And you start working on things that make you better as a player. You just start working on things that make you that perfect part of what the team needs.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Was there a particular shot, a game? When did that whole thing start to where Robert Horry is Big Shot Bob Clutch?
It's probably when the day I got the nickname, back in my my third year in the NBA, where we played San Antonio Spurs, who pretty much owned us throughout the regular season. They were 5-0 against us, and we played them in the playoffs in game one. I was able to, be 0 for 8, and then I knocked down a shot at the end of the game. Now 1 for 9, and then all of a sudden Craig Kilborn starts calling me Big Shot Bob, and so that's how it started, man. And the thing about me, my rookie year, I made a big shot against Seattle Supersonics to take the game in overtime in Game 7. That shot never gets talked about because we went on to lose that game, so it doesn't, it can't get brushed under the rug.
Right.
And so, but there's little things like that when you sit down after a season, you start analyzing not just your past season, but previous season, you realize, oh, man, I can play this game. I just need people to believe in me. I need to believe in myself. And so all those moments collectively just started coming together. And then you think about 95, you win your second championship, you go down in Orlando, and you averaging 20 and 10 in the Orlando series, and nobody talks about that. You're like, oh, I'm coming into my own. That confidence just hits you. You think about it, my third year in the league, I've already won 2 championships.
Wow.
I almost, they even mentioned my name of being MVP of the Orlando series. And that's just all confidence boosting. So you go into your second year, your fourth year with the Rockets, you playing good, you're averaging 14 points a game, and all of a sudden you get traded and then your life changes, and it goes to show you how if you have a coach that believes in you, a coach that's going to run plays for you, your game is going to be totally different from a coach saying, we have Shaq. We have Eldon Campbell. We have Kobe. We have Nick Van Exel. We have Eddie Jones. Someone has a sacrifice. Oh, you the new guy? You're going to be spot up shooting, play defense because, your game is not predicated on getting offensive plays because you like to play. And so, and at the moment, that's who I became, the guy who's the spot up shooter, Big Shot Bob. But, if I could have to do all over, a part of me, the selfish part of me, the ego part of me, we want to tell these coaches, man, F that. You're going to run some plays for me because I need to get some shots.
I mean, I just think there's a certain type of guy, that comes in off the bench on a baseball game, as a pinch hitter in the bottom of the ninth, coming off the bench cold. Not like that was you because you were in the game. It seems like that's a special type of mentality. Do you even think about this is it? Like this is a pressure shot, or are you just in the moment and it's not even going through your mind?
Yeah, I don't think about it. I just do it. It's you spend so much time in the gym working on your craft that you don't think about anything but doing what you need to do to be successful and be good and be better and all this kind of stuff. So for me, I've always been the guy to just go out and just do what's natural. I play the game. I do what I need to do to get better. I keep, trying to, talk to my teammates, get them to understand, me as a person, me as who I am, because that communication part that you have is so important, because I talk to you think about it, you catch Shaq alone, you talk to him, you get a sense of you catch Tim alone, you catch Dream alone, the guys who are the anchors of your teams that, you get to know them and say, yo, man, how do you like this? What do you think about? What's the plus of team? Yada, yada, yada. And for me, I've always been that leader in the sense of just talking to my teammates. You know, you get all these guys who are rah-rah guys and they pound their chest and do this, like, that's just antics to me. That's just for show. That's for you. You know, when you see a guy beating his chest and yelling at his teammates, that's not for his teammates. That's for him.
Right.
And for me, you get a guy who pulling the guy to the side, you know, talking to a guy in his ear. That's for that player. That's for the team as a whole, because now you telling that player to be in a certain situation that can help the team.
Look, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I'm a Yankee fan. A-Rod, when he played for the Yankees and it was in the playoffs and it counted and it was like it was time. It was do or die. A-Rod's up. It was a strikeout. But on the other hand, if it was do or die, you're in the playoffs, ninth inning, scores tied, and Jeter's up, you knew the guy was going to come through for you.
I remember when we get those guys in the locker room, they get up and they start doing these speeches, and I'm looking at, man, excuse my language, I'm like, man, shut the fuck up and sit down. I'm like, you ain't doing nothing but putting somebody to sleep.
Right.
And so, I know everybody's attitude ain't like mine, but that was my whole attitude like that. Just take a guy, pull him to the side, and talk to him. You know, I think sometimes people forget a calm voice is a perfect time during a storm to get you in the right position to be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
3 different teams, 7 rings. Is there a favorite team that you just think about? Like the guys you were so, the chemistry you're so in tune with. Is there one team that stands out, one season, one year?
No, you know what? It's so weird. I think about who I am as a person in my career. Each team represented the perfect time in my career. You know, my first 4 years with Houston, it was about learning, you know, learning from vets. Think about learning from Vernon, you know, Dream, Otis, you know, learning about the business of basketball from Tree Rollins and Sleepy Floyd. And then, you know, you get to a point where you're like, man, I want to be noticed for my craft. What better place than being in the L.A. Laker uniform, right?
Right.
And you playing in front of Jack Nicholson and Denzel Ross and Halle Berry, all these people, and you get to know these people. You're meeting the execs from Disney, all that sitting on the sideline. You meet these people, you get to talk to them. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm tired. I just want to play the game and go home to my kids. What better place than San Antonio?
Right.
You think about it. San Antonio wins championship, but nobody ever talks about them. You know, they probably the most underrated, untalked about team ever in sports, but they win chips. And that was perfect. Like, I just want to play and win and go home. And that's who I was in San Antonio. So my whole career was kind of just like the teams I won were perfect for me to be who I was and to help me, you know, become who I am to this day.
Perfect timing for you on all of those things, right?
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Post basketball, you know, great career and going to broadcasting and now a successful podcast. Where did that come from? When did you get the idea to do Big Shot Bob the Pod?
You know, it's weird when you talk about, you know, the podcast and Rob Jennings and B-Dog. Without them, I wouldn't be doing it because it was something that I always thought about doing. When you're doing a podcast, you got to have the right people with you. Trying to think of the guy's name right now. Crap. You know, he had approached me with doing a podcast about 2 or 3 years before we started it. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do no podcast. He said, man, you got a lot of stories to tell, yada, yada, yada. And then it was, what was this? I can't think. Norm. Who owned,
you talking about Norm Pattis from Westwood One? Norm Pattis?
Yeah, Norm Pattis. Yeah, this is talking about and this goes back to all the connections you talk about when you meet as a Laker.
Yeah, he's a big wig. You know, he's a legend. He's a legend in the radio broadcasting biz and Westwood One and all that. So yeah, you're talking about a big timer for sure.
Yeah, and that's the advantage of playing for the Lakers. You get to meet so many influential people like this. And so I did, he said, and it, like everything else, I did the podcast and I did education all during COVID. COVID made me try different things I never thought I would do. And I think doing the podcast helped me so much as far as translating over to, you know, my broadcasting, because you get to talk about sports more, but you want to know about sports more. Because when I first started doing Laker television, I only watched the Lakers. You know, Now I watch a little bit more. I watch more teams so I can be more educated. So when we do talk about the podcast, which kind of, you know, trickles over into what I do for the Lakers, or for Spectrum, I should say.
Big Shot Bob, the podcast. It's on the podcast playground, and it's everywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever. It's on all of them. And my last question, Robert, is your very first job. What was your very first job ever? First paycheck.
If I tell you, you're not going to believe me because they always say black people can't swim. I was a lifeguard.
You were a your very first gig was a lifeguard, and how old were you?
I was a lifeguard. I was my junior year in high school, going into my senior year. And so what we would do is we had this thing called play school, and it was pretty much for black families that went to, their kids could go and hang out while their parents were at school. And it was held at our middle school. So, and my high school coach, Richard Robinson, who I love to death, who's probably, he is probably the integral part to my success because he was just always on me. And so what I would do is you had to be there in the morning at 7:00. You feed the kids breakfast, you would play games with them, you organize, you do softball, but all kind of sports, right? And then at 12:00, I would leave to go to the local pool, which was considered the black pool. We'll go to the pool, I will clean up everything, and then the pool will open up from 1, and I'll be there from 1 to 5 as a lifeguard. And then at 5:00, I will close the pool down, clean it up. And so what I would do is I would jog home. And so that year, going into my senior year, I was in the best shape of my life because I would swim. Then, my mom would be doing whatever she doing. I said, no, I just jog home. I was in great shape. So basically, I was a lifeguard for 1 year. That was my first paycheck.
That is awesome, man. Big Shot Bob, the podcast, and 7-time NBA champ, Robert Horry. Big Shot Bob, clutch, baby. So great talking to you, man. You're a cool guy. I really appreciate the phone call. And good luck with the podcast. Good luck with everything, man. And good luck to your son at UCLA. I'm keeping an eye on him.
Thanks, Jeff, man. I appreciate it, man. It's been fun.
And we're on the same podcast network, the Podcast Playground. Big Shot Bob, the pod. Listen wherever you listen to podcasts. 7-time NBA champion. Can you believe that? More rings than Michael Jordan? Guy is a very humble man. Grew up in a small town in Alabama. Went to play college ball for the Crimson Tide. For the legendary coach, Wimp Sanderson. When I talked to him about his big break or his moment that changed him, it was kind of funny because he brought up 2 negative circumstances. One, when he was in high school, missed a free throw, got bounced out of his team's own Christmas tournament, kids crying in the locker room, talked about being in college and having it out with the coach and getting thrown off the team. Those moments were really important for Robert as they showed him that it was about the team and he had a particular role to play. And I think understanding that actually really helped him in his career, which enabled him to be a great role player and succeed 16 years in the NBA. Big Shot Bob, he's known as being clutch, and he was all through his career. He's with the Houston Rockets, played a year for Phoenix. Of course, he played with the Lakers and finished his career in San Antonio. I thought it was interesting that his backup plan was the NBA. His original plan was to graduate from college and become a teacher and a basketball coach. He's from a whole family of teachers. And that was his original plan. And just went back to Alabama to finish up his degree during COVID. Really cool at the end of the interview, because I almost forgot to ask him what his very first job was, being a lifeguard, and talking about that job and the community and how much it taught him about life. I thought was a really, really cool guy. Was a really nice guy, humble guy. And again, don't forget to check out his podcast, The Big Shot Bob Pod. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. And the same with the Celebrity Jobber podcast. We are everywhere. So please listen, stream, subscribe, Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. We've got past episodes posted online at celebrityjobber.com. Can hear all of our past guests from the last 150 episodes. And I thank you so much once again for listening to another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Until next week, I'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.